left ideology. The point of the Intercept was not just a new kind of journalism in terms of like the ethos. It was supposed to be structured differently. I remember, I've known Matt Taibbi forever, and I remember Matt Taibbi would always tell me the story, which is Matt Taibbi's father was a fairly well-known and accomplished journalist in I think Boston, in the area where they grew up. And he would tell me he'd be around journalists all the time, like as a kid. So he would go out, for dinner to a bar with his dad and his dad's friends. They were all journalists. And they would all sit around talking about the news, and it was so fun. He would say like they were vulgar and funny, and, they were just like, it was so spirited. And then the next day you would wake up and you would read their copy, and it was like so fucking boring. It was like drained of all its vibrancy and voice and personality. Why? Because editors were there flattening and hammering it into like this staid, formulaic, obligatory, acceptable to advertiser tone. And so when I started my journalism career, I started the way you started it. I didn't start a YouTube channel. I started a blog spot, and I would just go into my blog spot every day, and I would write what I felt about Bush and Cheney, and I would fucking hit publish, and I built an audience that way. And then when I moved to Salon and The Guardian, I said, I'm only going to come and work with you if you let me continue to work under those conditions, which is no editor touches what I do except in very rare circumstances when I ask. And obviously I didn't leave, and they said okay, and I didn't leave The Guardian to create a new news outlet built on my reputation and my work to impose on myself greater editorial restrictions and less freedom than I had before, obviously. I built The Intercept. The idea was it was going to be a journalist-run publication where editors were there just that you picked and chose to like that you trusted to like make suggestions about how your work could be improved, but they weren't going to be the bosses. They weren't going to be the people that like dictated how you had to speak and write. I wanted to create a news outlet that gave that same freedom to other journalists that I always had for myself in my career. And slowly over time, because we chose not to run it, because I didn't want to be in budget meetings and HR meetings and corporate bullshit and lawyers, I wanted to do my journalism, we knew we had to get a manager. The idea was that manager would basically report to us. We would pick the editor-in-chief, and the idea was she was basically there to fulfill our vision. And over time, once we had John Cook, who used to be a Gawker, it didn't work out. He left after about 9 months, and then we got Betsy Reed from The Nation. And over time, her vision diverged from at least mine. I don't want to talk about Jeremy or Laura, who left very shortly after Betsy got there. Jeremy's still there. But it gradually became a standard liberal left publication, especially after Trump won, because they were very sensitive because we did the reporting on the DNC and Podesta emails because that was our job. We exposed corruption on the part of the DNC. So for 4 years, they heard from, the people at the New York Times and NBC and their friends in Brooklyn, oh, you guys helped Trump win. You shouldn't have been reporting on these emails. So they resolved, now we're not going to do this again. We're going to become good Democratic Party soldiers. And so, as I saw The Intercept morphing into something I not only didn't like or recognize, but that they actually made me sick, I figured, at least they're still not fucking with my journalism. They're still giving me the stuff that I want. When I did my Brazil reporting last year, they paid all the criminal lawyers I needed when the Bolsonaro government tried to prosecute me. They paid my 24-hour security that I needed because of death threats. They, stood behind the reporting. So it's like, all right, as long as you're not fucking with my reporting, I'll let you use my name and fundraise off me and stay, even though you're not what I like. Just stay the fuck away from me, and I'll stay away from you, and we'll be over in different corners. So that was the only rationale I was clinging to for staying. So when, in the week before the election, I decided I wanted to write about the Hunter Biden emails, in large part because I knew that they were afraid to do so, and the only article that they published about it was one by Jim Risen, which said, which quoted the fucking CIA, the Intercept, the thing that I created to be opposed to the national security state, quoting the CIA, claiming that Russia was behind this story and therefore you should ignore it. I was so offended that that was the only thing that they had that we had published about it, that I said, you know what, I'm going to write my own story about it, saying what it is that, and this is the kind of story, Jimmy, I wrote without editors for 15 years, and suddenly they descended on me like fucking vultures looking for a meal. I was filled with meat, and they're just like, oh, we see you're writing about this. We need to put this to our editorial process. And then you saw the email. The last email was like, we're not publishing this unless you take out all the parts about Biden. Feel free to bash the media, but not Joe Biden. And I said, fuck you, and I quit, because I'm never, ever going to allow somebody to tell me what. Imagine if you started the Jimmy Dore Show, turned into a success, and then someone somehow came in and was like, Jimmy, you can't say this on the Jimmy Dore Show. And you'd be like, what the fuck? I didn't start the Jimmy Dore Show for someone to tell me what that's how I felt. So I was like, fuck you. I'm not staying at a place that's going to tell me what I can and can't say, and I quit and I left.
So this is obviously a big grift that you would leave such a high-paying job where they were taking care of all your bills to go